Hello, everyone. Welcome to Humanity Rising. This is the day 5, the last song of this week's program, Living Resonance Leadership Master PhD Introduction. Today's theme will be introducing psychotopology coaching, a groundbreaking methodology to restore feeling as our inner compass. As usual, we will turn to at the beginning, Jim Garrison, who usually does this live. Now he is sending us a video from Mexico during his pilgrimage trip. Let's watch.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison. I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. I'm joined this morning with two pilgrims, Shannon and Roberto, who've been with us here all week in Teotihuacan. We've been in deep ceremony for the last 6 days. Yesterday was the solstice, and we were continuously from the early morning. We all got up at about 5:30, 5:45 to assemble at the Dreaming House. Dawn here in Mexico local time was at 6 a.m. So we had an extraordinary ceremony guided by a Kundalera, woman shaman from the ancient Mayan culture with a lineage that goes all the way back to Toltec times. We spent the morning in preparation and then went out to the Pyramid of the Sun for the afternoon. The exact moment of the solstice was at 2:50 p.m. So we all circumambulated the pyramid 3 times and then had ceremony, and then went back to the Dreaming House and prepared ourselves for the sunset and the ascent to the pyramid, so that we were back in a hill called the Cactus Garden, opposite the Pyramid of the Sun, where we lit this extraordinary ceremonial fire with the Kundalera. And then a smaller group of us went to the pyramid in the dark of night and ascended the pyramid and had ceremony on the pyramid, and then came back and were received by the group around the fire. So we had an extraordinarily beautiful day in deep resonance with the sun and the alignment of the sun. So I just thought it'd be nice to have Shannon, our dear Shannon, who guides the after chats and does so much to support Humanity Rising, and Roberto, one of our doctoral students who's also been present on Humanity Rising. So Shannon, why don't you say a word?
Oh, well, it's just, this experience has been transcendent. The quality of the depth of the learning that we have received here from the Toltecs, the faculty, the people, I can't express myself. But my love goes out to you guys, Stan in the after chat, and all of you guys holding space while we're doing work for the next 7 generations and for our now times. These are challenging times, and I am grateful for every one of you for doing the work that you do in your life. And thank you for giving us this space in your life, because this is how the one comes together. And thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Shannon. Roberto.
I don't know what to add to that. Well said. Thank you, Shannon. The experience here has been absolutely phenomenal. The energy of the group itself and the perfection on how things have happened, from the weather holding out to just needing something and it just appears, someone of the group comes in with it, to the teachings we've had, just really, really deep. And the plans have changed just miraculously along the way, perfectly. So it's just been a holding space where we're in service to the planet, in service to the Kogi, and we're just holding that space, and everyone has been participating beautifully. And the Dreaming House has been absolutely a magical place to be. So we have been blessed. Thank you, everybody, and Jim, of course, and everybody who's, of course, facilitated this.
So thank you, everyone. We love you all. We felt deep community with you all week. We were also very aware of the events in Central Park and other places around the world where Indigenous people and people of goodwill are mindful of the extraordinary momentousness of our time, that we have now come to a moment of reckoning where the mother is going to restore herself with or without us. And so we were consecrating our hearts. We know that there's not so much that we can do at this moment, but there is what we can be and how we orient ourselves in the prayer that the mother will hear the purity of our hearts and the sacredness of our intent to be with her and available to her. So we have been in that spirit all week, and we want to share that with you as our family here on Humanity Rising. So welcome to Humanity Rising, and we'll see you next week. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Jim and Roberto and Shannon, for your radiant smiles and message, especially the last one. There's not so much for us to do at this moment, but there is a place, a state for us to be. So I'd like to invite the co-presenter, Joe. Let me introduce us, actually. I am Spring Cheng. I'm the creator of Living Resonance Leadership degree program. Joe and I are the co-founder of Resonance Path Institute. We have stewarded and created this body of knowledge and system and practice. That's the core of this, that makes up some of the core of this program. So I'm going to give you an introduction. So Joe is my life partner as well as professional and a creative partner. So please bear with me because my introduction will be biased because he's the love of my life. And you know, this morning when I got up, I'm thinking about I'm about to introduce Joe. I felt so emotional. My heart is just filled with respect and admiration for this man that in my life. He is a real magician and a hermit, as well as a scientist who have, in my experience, someone who have so rigorously and thoroughly explored every corner of his psyche, connected to his ancestor, connected to within his reach, the collective trauma of the millenniums of history, and systematically and painstakingly visited every rooks and craniums of those places and transformed them and steward those parts of self into a place of wholeness. And out of that, he has presented and created this methodology and the system, psychotopology, which is, I can say without it, there won't be resonance code and there won't be the living resonance leadership. So with that, I'm going to invite him to introduce himself and say something to you to open this space.
Yeah, took my words away. My breath, all of it. Thank you. I moved to just acknowledge this community that we're invited to present for and participate with and be a part of. Just kind of getting that presentation with Jam and Shannon and Roberto and the people's responses in the chat and everything is like there's some vibrant love energy present here. So I'm grateful to be to have the opportunity to be in this space and grateful to have that with Spring. I mean, as she has said, we're in it together, and we for the last 11 years now I've been working pretty hard on what is wanting to move through us and clearing the space for that. And for me personally, that is the work of psychotopology. And I'm looking forward to sharing some a glimpse of that with you here today. I think it makes sense for us to take a step back first, and I want to kind of pass the ball back to Spring and invite a little bit of perspective of where does this psychotopology fit in the bigger picture of living resonance leadership, and not just where is it today, but you talked about how this program and resonance code wouldn't exist without this, but maybe say a little bit about that path, that emergence, what that looked like for you.
Thank you. So living resonance leadership is taking a new stance in response to a world that has been led astray or into a dangerous death march by the kind of leadership infiltrating every layer of our society, not just on top, but every microorganism, the kind of leadership that emphasis on dominate, control, competition, and excessive doing, excessive linear growth. The keywords is excessive here. None of these by itself is necessarily bad. It's the holistic context that's holding this is missing. So, with the heritage from Taoism that has endowed through my being, I felt called to take this stance for a leadership that's rooted in being, rooted in connection with Universal Mother. And through the Taoist teaching, if those of you who read Tao Te Ching, it emphasized again and again, every time anyone pointing to the light, pointing to a new path, it's going to cast a shadow. And I think that's a teaching has been ingrained in my Chinese culture, Chinese condition. That's so it's such a like embodied knowing that it's from the very beginning, it was very important for me to as every step I move, I will examine what's the shadow has been cast by that step. There are many, there has been and always has been many effort, people making an effort towards the light, taking a stand for something, for love, peace, equality, freedom. all these ideals that we strive for, but without fully accepting, respecting, and having the technology, I'd say methodology to transform and compose the shadow is, in my opinion, makes the difference of something that can be actually an embodied manifestation, or something will fall short. And you probably, we all have seen many such attempts that falls short, fractured by the unexamined shadow. So psychotopology, Joe and I, when we started 11 years ago, so within psychotopology, there's this process, there's this methodology called the field work, which is a systematic way to examine the places in ourself that is incongruent through the doorway of feeling, a seemingly inconspicuous doorway. But it is through this doorway that I have personally dived deep into the abyss of my personal and ancestral trauma again and again, and finding the jewel out of that diving from in the abyss, as well as I've facilitated clients, taught students to do that. And I would say today, based on my experience and journey, diving deep into the darkness, the abyss, for me is essential for a true sustainable transcendent journey. So another piece I want to say is that in our modern culture, in this globalized the modern culture, one thing I notice is that because we have such freedom of mobility, we can move to places, we can shift the job and the relationship and the social context so easily. It's very easy for us to create a self-identity, wearing the part of ourselves we like, we identify with, and reject the part of ourselves that's it's harder for us to integrate. And so much of the fracture of our today's culture are, the fracture of left and right, the progressive and conservative, and so on and so forth. Many of them underneath it is this tendency to externalize the internal conflict into outer, projecting onto others. So, and I still do that. The only exception is I know that I'm doing that, or the only, maybe in the saving grace is that I know I notice when I do that. I think the psychotopology present me as a tool is that whenever I see something outside that I point finger to, that I judge, that I think is the evil of the world, it gave me a pathway to look into what is that part inside of myself that I have rejected and externalized and projected as evil outside, and which is an immensely empowering tool, because I got less and less reactive or feel powerless in response to the brokenness outside. Not that I'm getting numbed or passive about it. In fact, just to be able to be with the chaos, the fracture outside, actually gave me opportunity to tap into a deeper source, to respond from a place of a perspective that can see every parts.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Joe.
What you're you're describing this balance between what's inside and what's outside, that what we perceive to be outside of us, our perceptions are shaped by what is inside of us. And we're going to get to see kind of what that looks like through the process of psychotopology. Another balance that I think I want to introduce as part of the conversation, part of what brought this current cultural times into being is this rise of the focus and the privileging of objectivity over subjectivity, of the external, nameable, point-outable things that we use to coordinate our activities that we need in order to live together, in order to feed ourselves and build a house and everything else. There's a need for this, and we've gotten a little carried away with our mastery of our external shared realities and our technologies, and have lost touch with the deeper, more alive in some ways, internal realities. So at the same time, I really want to emphasize the importance of balance. That what we're not talking about, we need to shift it the other way. We actually need to balance things out. And psychotopology is one, I think, is a pretty premier example of that, because maybe it's a good time. Do you think it's a good time for me to just describe field work?
Yes, I think so. I was about to say that. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's just give an example of how field work works.
So, in psychotopology fieldwork, we are turning our attention to the actual felt experience of being in all its nuance and flavor and complexity. And we do that by giving names to feeling states. Oh, I'm feeling this muddled something inside. Let me show you some notes from, yeah.
Can I just make one connection, how this connect with what I said earlier? So one, the kind of principle that Joe put words to, that as soon as he said that 11 years ago, it kind of like concrete this commitment that I had to this relationship with him, is that he always say, behind every evil, there is a desire, there is an impulse towards wholeness. Wow, what a drastic, the first, our media, our culture is infused with this message of conquer dominant evil, and that begets the bigger violence, and to actually have that kind of compassion and receptivity and that faith in evil is radical, is revolutionary. And it was actually through our 11 years living together, we actually did encounter each other's demon inside and had to go. we literally embodied the US-China war in our relationship. And we tested that out between us. Can we actually trust the thing that hurts us the most in the context of our intimate relationship? And that's how we got to sit here to tell you this. So having that faith, it means that whenever we encounter something in the world, in a relationship that impact us, we cannot just write it off to say, oh, that's just that tyrant, or that person is this way or that way, giving labels. We are committed to investigate our response, our reaction, our emotional reaction to that thing that hurt us. So that comes to this. That's what's the leads to what Joe talked about, the investigation of the being. investigation of our emotional response to the world.
Right. So I'm going to share screen real quick, and so that so you can see some visuals while I'm describing this process. And what I'm going to share is notes from work with a volunteer during a training who gave permission to share this work. And this is, let me, when we are going into, so Maureen asked, how would you define psychotopology? And the name, the word topology refers to relationships between functional entities. They talk about computer network topology, where you have the server and you get the clients, and that's the topology. You've got mathematical topology of shapes that, you can take a donut and squish it around and turn it into a coffee cup. And you don't have to tear anything and you don't have to squeeze anything together. You're just deforming it, and it maintains, every point stays the same relationship with every other point. And so this is an underlying universal architecture of our being that is revealed when we bring our attention to the experience of feeling. I started working with Susan we immediately went into she says, something that's really up for me right now in general is receiving, allowing myself to receive, and specifically to receive love. And the first feeling state that we identified was something that she called no. I asked her a series of questions about what no actually feels like, asking about its location and heart level, mid-chest, maybe up to my jaw, so in front of her chest. And I asked her about the substance, and it was more solid, a hard solid, a heavy hard solid, like a steel plate. And I asked her about the temperature. It's like not freezing cold, but cool compared to body temperature. And color was like stainless steel. And so then we would, when we drew it, this is what it looked like, right? So this is the experience of no for her. From that place, we went a little further into some of the other states, and shame came up. This is what shame looks like. It's like a little porcupine with spikes out of it. And when we inquire into shame, like, that those spikes look like they're protecting something. Is there something inside there? Oh, actually, yes, there is this love inside the shame. And the no, this is a barrier, right? There's a barrier between what's in front of her and what's inside of her. So the question is, well, what's inside of you? What is it protecting? And what it was protecting is something she called fearful fear. So there in the course of, 45 minutes to an hour, we had unpacked her resistance to love into these 4 clear, distinct feeling experiences that together look like this. The love is buried and protected by the shame. The fear is guarded and protected by the no, keep away from me, right? The interesting thing is what we're doing with these questions is we are unpacking the nebulous, ineffable experience of feeling, translating it into what I call the proto-language of materiality. We're born, even before we're born, we are bodies surrounded by material stuff, right? We have this fundamental experience of embodiment, of stuffness, of solids, liquids, gas, light, energy, warmth, cool. And it becomes sort of the basis for all of our existence. And feeling seems to be made of this stuff. And when we ask questions inviting us to make that connection, like this know that you experience, where is it? Oh, it's like right here. And what kind of substance? It's like a steel plate. Okay. It's definitely when you do this work, it's very clear and it's very tangible. It's like you turning a light on in a dark basement and, oh, wow, there's a box over here. What's in that? Oh my goodness, I didn't know I had this. So this virtual material stuff that makes up our feeling, we can actually interact with it. We can shift it on purpose. We can change that coolness of the steel plate and it starts to warm up. Let's go back to this session here and let's just see all together. There they are. And so the next steps, we're going to decide, we're going to shift these. And when you shift the temperature, when you shift the substance, when you shift the color, there's one direction you'll shift it that it feels worse. No, I don't think I want to go that way. And another direction where it feels better. And that's like a compass needle. You follow the compass towards your North Star for that part of you. And so we start out with shifting the shame. The shame seems to be sort of the center of all of this, right? So when we move the shame, we set a frame first of what would this part of you most want to be in a perfect world if it had all of its needs met fully and completely, exactly the way it wanted. What would this part of you want to become? What would it want to feel instead? There's this underlying, this is where the topology comes in. There's an underlying modularity. There's a thingness to what is giving rise to the feeling, to what is being expressed through this feeling. And it has its own purpose. It has its own function and ideal way of being. And so we're inviting it to reconnect with that ideal. And so it goes back to, so this shame started out, we asked, okay, substance-wise, if you were to free to become harder, softer, bigger, smaller, warmer, cooler, no more porcupine quills, it would change color, would be yellow like a glowing sun and really soft, and it becomes pure light or energy. Interesting. And it becomes like 100 degrees or so. Interesting. And this sort of like the egg yolk yellow. And so this is shimmery or sparkly. So it becomes this very different feeling that she called receiving. Okay. And then the love, which was bound up inside the shame, then it becomes free to move. And so the love expands and it becomes infinite love. So let's just, the fearful fear becomes spaciousness and the no becomes exquisite safety. So let's just look at what each of those looks like. Here's the exquisite safety. Remember that steel plate in front of the chest? It becomes this base that is solid for her to stand on, right? The spaciousness that sort of surrounding her with this security, this comfort, right? The infinite love is everywhere. inside and around her infinitely. And this is the what the shame became, this golden, what is that called? Receiving, right? So interesting that this receiving is there in place of, let's switch over to the other view where we can see shame becomes receiving. And this whole system of these four parts, this block to love, this obstacle, this no that is sort of fed by the shame that is guarding the love that has been wounded at some point in the past. We didn't need to go into that. We're just paying attention to what it actually feels like, and magical things get to happen. So the shift involves how this place of being utterly open to receive an infinite love that's available everywhere, always. And from a place of standing on this exquisite safety, inhabiting this spacious place. So this is what psychotopology looks like. This is what fieldwork does. And let me go ahead and stop sharing screen and kind of shift to so
I want to underscore several things about this process. That's the unique feature about this process. One is that the shift of the feeling is organic. So often one thing about connecting the feeling experience into the proto-language of materiality is it decouples the dominant control of our rational mind into feeling, so that the rational mind doesn't have even a place to grab onto, and the shift will come from this embodied knowledge of your life, and all the wisdom is stored in your own embodied process will guide this shift. So that it feels so real, so real and organic, and it actually almost feel like it's already happened when that shift happened.
It's a kind of sacred space in a way. And part of the topology that's revealed in this is that feeling is kind of an anchor. These feeling parts, these modules, these fields of feeling stuff have relationships with one another, like you saw in this this person's four parts. And thoughts connect these. And the connections that are possible when you've got four different parts, you can make almost infinite kinds of connections. And so thought binds things into their original, their reactive spaces very tightly. Yeah, I wish I'd prepared sort of an illustration of this, but I don't have it handy right now. But just think of an atom. You have the nucleus of the atom, and that's sort of at the center, and that's like the feeling state. And then around it are these electrons. They can be hundreds of them, and all these other electron fields. And it's in the electrons that link to the other electrons that create chemical bonds and build molecules and beyond. And it's like the thought is that. And so it holds these nuclei together in a certain configuration that's hard to break. What we're doing is we're bringing our awareness to the nucleus. We're saying, where do you actually want to go? Where's your truth? And it goes, and all those bonds dissolve. It's kind of magical. And reconfigure in this new place. So you shift no to exquisite safety. You shift shame to the receiving, and the thoughts go along with it, like spontaneously.
Can I share my experience of that?
Yeah.
So my experience of that is that I'm a English second language. English is my second language. So when I started to do writing in English in this, the work I'm doing, it's massively challenging. How do I organize the thoughts that's bound up in the ancient Chinese into modern English? So the linear way would not get me anywhere close. What happens is that I would write a manuscript and have it like receive feedback from outside, sometimes often with Joe. And the feedback will land in me places where I start to have feelings, frustration, sometimes anger, sometimes pain, the pain of not being able to express myself to the world. And instead of going back immediately to the manuscript to work on, to organize the thoughts, I turn my attention to these the emotional response coming up in this interaction. And by diving into deeper into and free the part of me that's bound up in these emotions, it may take 1 day or it may take 3 days for me to do the field work mapping. After I transformed these feeling states into their wholesome states, new thoughts would automatically organize itself. It's literally feeling like magic. It's like something reorganized inside of my nervous system, and then a new iteration would come it's at a different level. So it's a new way to work with my logical, rational thinking and emotion in a way that it's so integrative that it's oscillate between these two parts of myself in a very collaborative way.
Right, right. And one thing I want to emphasize is that this woman's no and her exquisite safety and her shame and receiving, these are absolutely unique to her, right? There isn't, one of the things that shows up with psychotopology is the utter inadequacy of our common language to actually communicate and capture the complexity and the nuance and the richness of our inner worlds. And so whatever words we put onto it are simply, the best little handles that we can attach to this magnificent structure. And it is in that structure itself and the restoration of it to its natural sort of true functioning that we get to show up in a place of presence with an aliveness and a responsiveness that actually enables us to meet life afresh, right? Without needing the conceptual, rational answers for anything, but being able to show up in living situations and respond from a place of life that is generative and creative and sometimes just unexpected. Yeah.
Can I I feel moved to talk more about the parasomatic nature of feeling that's uncovered through field work. Does that sound all right with you, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one aspect that was really important in how psychotopology holds feeling, and my experience of it is, I think in our modern culture, we had this limiting belief to think that whatever feeling inside the feeling that we experience is mine, is my unique, is my personal experience that's unrelated with outside. And that's I think is a function of this separation of the objective and the subjective experience. But what's the so in the feeling states, when we're using psychotopology to go inside and investigate our feeling states, a third to I'd say half of the feeling states, after they are restored to their fuller expression, they actually occupy space around the body. And they're occupied in a way you can interact and transform them. You have agency to manipulate and shape these energies, this substance feeling stuff around your space. Yeah, maybe Joe, you can take over from and talk about that dimension. Yeah.
I want to connect it also with there's, we started out with this person with the reactive states of no and shame and stuff, and we shifted everything to the ideal states of safety and receiving and infinite love. This work is not about locking into infinite love or exquisite safety. This work is about reconnecting with the North Star, reconnecting with the full spectrum of our feeling, so that when we are in life and it's throwing crap at us, we are responding from a place of, I know where my North Star is. I'm going to respond with this by going around, or going through, or going under, or dealing with it directly. And that's coming from a place where I know my truth. Okay? And I don't have to know it in my mind, I feel it. And so it gives that compass to lived engagement with life. So part of the structure that shows up is there is this topology that is 1/3 of our parts. Let me just show you. I'm going to share another bit real quick. I guess I'll just do this. There's my background. This is the one. I'm going to just give you. So this is some work I did with myself at the beginning of 2016. Every one of these is a feeling state that I mapped. Okay? The reactive state turning into the ideal state. These are all the days that I worked on something. This was an almost daily thing for a few months, checking in with it, sort of mapping, moving, integrating. And there are these groups of these parts of us that I call sets. And each set optimally has 9 parts to it. And 1/3 of those are what I call sources. So a source originates inside of us. So this source is right there in my solar plexus. This one, the inside source, is in my solar plexus, and has an infinite sense of supply of some resource that's coming from either inside of us or outside of us. Here's a source that's coming from behind me, flowing through me, or is located everywhere. So here's my context source, sort of like that woman's infinite love. This one for me was cradle of life. So, and the altogether, this is what it looks like, which is very different from where it started, which is here. Okay. So, but you see how much of the feeling is located outside the body. 1/3 of our parts are oriented towards ourselves and what's capable for us to bring forth into life. 1/3 of our parts are oriented towards what's outside of us and what's available for us to meet what we bring forward in relationship. And 1/3 of our parts are oriented towards this context in which we have the opportunity for this relationship. And so these, when we're tapping into these ideal states, these are the states that are practiced and sought in various kinds of traditions and practices, from meditation to spiritual practices and such. Like the context source is an experience of divinity that's infinite and everywhere, or unity or oneness, mind, intelligence, love, etc. So there is this inside, outside, and context. And in accessing these pure ideal states, we're touching into something that is mysterious and beyond us. Like these sources are tapping into something that goes beyond my being, right? And Spring and I have both experienced accessing these states that tap us into our ancestry or some other connection to some other kinds of energies. And it's clear that what we experience as us through this ineffable stuff of feeling is actually channels to rivers that have been flowing for probably millions of years, and that connect us to everything. And our opportunity is to open to that connection.
Yeah.
So I think
so when I started doing fieldwork mapping, it was, at that time I have already started doing regular meditation, Taoist practice for many years, and it was absolutely startling that within very short period of time, I was able through fieldwork, starting from very painful, traumatic. It's really the Taoist, this what's written in Tao Te Ching. In order to soar high, you need to dive deep. So the fieldwork took me to dive really deep into deep ancestral collective trauma, and where with that, I find this almost like a speed ramp into a state that I thought it would take me decades to achieve. But the point is not about reaching this higher state and dwell there. It's about this ease to be able to go up and down, to go in and out, and I want to also address what it means to be able to have this capacity to go with ease inside, up and down, in and out of light and shadow. Is that I saw that somewhere in the chat, someone talk about how now we access this exquisite safety and infinite love. How do we protect children from babies from required lethal vaccines? So, we live in a world that each one of us is very concerned with different kind of threats, real threats that coming that happening around us, being it is AI, white supremacy, nuclear weapon, you name it, vaccine, one of them, as being one of them. So what this work is teaching is that to the extent we react with fear, with this reactivity, we won't be able to effectively engage with creating the kind of healthy, wholesome vibrant reality that we want. So the place, and what Taoism also teaches is that the place that's most strong and powerful, that is infused with life force, is actually engaged from a place of unknown, of curiosity. And that is a result after so something like that, when for me, for example, I have a personal relationship with white supremacy. It's something tends to land in me as a reactivity. And the pathway that's enabled by psychotopology is, rather than pouring all my emphasis on changing, shaping, or even stamping down on white supremacy, I'm going to turn my attention into my reactivity to it, and dissect it like almost with the precision, the patience of a neurosurgeon, like what Joe has shown. Dissect it out, map it out, my own reactivity. In fact, in doing so, I find the seeds of supremacy inside of myself that matches the very thing that I'm afraid of outside. And by restoring all these my reactivity from fear, I was able to find a way to attune myself to that emptiness of the Tao, the emptiness of the curiosity, so that I can engage more effectively, whatever that evil I think is outside.
Yeah, and the really, really important things about this. So I described how 1/3 of us is sort of oriented towards what we have to bring forward, 1/3 oriented towards what's available for us to meet and connect with and receive. 1/3 about the context of that. Is in doing this work, it is not enough to simply map all your reactive states and move them to the ideal and you're a free bird. You need to embody and integrate not just with yourself, but with others. And so the most powerful place for us to act from is a place with others together. And so the biggest, perhaps the biggest thing that this work does to feed into changing the world is enabling us to clear the spaces in us that make it possible for us to become collective, to grow our collective strength, to connect with others, to build relationship, to out of those relationships, to create new things, to be a channel for emergence of things that we don't have the capacity to imagine and plan and execute the way we're taught things have to happen, but actually to show up in a way that something bigger comes through us and makes itself known, and we get to embody and enact that in a way that is, fulfilling beyond anything else.
Which requires also, this is very difficult to do, is to relinquish, and I'm saying that to myself too, is to relinquish the need to be right.
Mhm.
No matter, that's the thing is we know that collaboration, cooperation, and taking into account of all perspective is the way forward. And in reality, it's very difficult to come, because on one hand, we need to hold on, or not hold on, but need to stand for, inhabit the place that inside of ourselves that we want to enliven. We want to live present, to be that calls for us. And at the same time, to have a part of ourselves to willing to say, well, I don't really know the full picture. can I actually engage with someone who's different than me? Both of these are exceedingly difficult. Yeah, so they're calling for, extremely brave and putting oneself out there. At the same time, it's both the valley and the peak,
Right.
echo with what we talk, the opening song that I sing. So this work is about to be the peak, to stand, to take a stance for what we believe in, and to be the valley, to say, I don't really know the full picture. This is who I am right now. Who are you? Can we have a dialogue, have a conversation?
Right. And this practice, the fieldwork practice, is a way to practice this, okay, explicitly by what's so important is this balance between the thing that we can grasp and shape, and the thing that's ineffable and we don't know. And our culture has so trained us to focus on the things we can grab and say, I know what this is, and I know what to do with it, and I'm going to do that, right? And that's where we're focused, and that's where our attention goes. And it is caught up in these externalizable, nameable, shared realities, and has forgotten about the power of the mystery. And so psychotopology does a great job of giving us a way to practice balancing knowing and not knowing, acting and being, sort of seeing and feeling, these the inside and the outside. So
And I want to also say my experience of practicing, so some of you probably heard this term Wu Wei, the Taoist term. It's often translated as non-doing, which is actually, again, a mistranslation. It's not about non-doing, it's about doing the minimum, finding the acupuncture point to find it, to how do we apply acupuncture to the system? Whatever, so if whatever we're concerned with, whatever that to which grab our attention, being vaccination, being social injustice or nuclear war, whatever that big systemic imbalance that we're zooming in, the question inquiry is how can we become the acupuncture point? How can we apply acupuncture to the system to engage in a way that we present our beingness, our essence to the picture without being attached to what the outcome is? Because as soon as we become attached to the outcome, we fall back into the I know what's I'm right paradigm. So how do we live ourselves into it? And in doing psychotopology work, what I find, why the acupuncture, how come this butterfly effect, fluttering of a butterfly wing will cause a systemic change, and that's the same, similar kind of mechanism to the acupuncture point, is that how do we apply an action that comes from our being, from that place of effortless being that is actually connected with the whole system? And that's what the psychotopology, finding out those feeling states that's actually is populating, inhabiting in the space around us, actually allows us to find that part of us that is connected with the bigger system, so that the smallest minimum amount of action is resonating, will have this resonating effect with the bigger movement that is going on in the field.
And there you have a really nice summary of living resonance leadership.
Yes, that's what happens is that 11 years ago when I first met Joe, I was nobody, and I'm just one acupuncturist practicing in my small clinic. I have this huge wellspring of desire to participate in the social change, but I had no, I'm an immigrant Asian woman. I'm at the lowest run of the social, I mean, not lowest, but I feel pretty disempowered. And it was through doing psychotopology. It was at that time Joe was being presented to me by Mystery. And I have proved within my own past that just doing the smallest way effortless thing that's coming from my being that might be completely irrational. My rational mind just like flipped out, doesn't understand what's going on. And that gradually delivered me to this platform with Humanity Rising, where I find a resonance with the symphony in which I can play a part in.
The phrase that keeps coming to my mind right now is the difference between doing and being done through.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that quite captures, is a little clumsy, but it's sort
I
of
love
like,
it. Being done, it's like you are a fruit that you are being played with. You are being resonate
yeah,
with. Yeah.
something is being delivered through your presence. And so needing to be clear enough, integrated enough to be present, which means you are connected to everything in ways that go beyond your capacity to understand, and things are moving into and through you in ways that are beyond your capacity to know. And in those actions, that's where magic can happen.
Yes.
I see you doing it all the time.
Yeah, the chart that Joe has shown that, what he shown there is like 30, 40 feeling states.
Yeah,
And
it's 3 sets, so 27 parts.
27, yeah. And
Yeah.
Joe has a complete map of 729 feeling states. Yeah. So
Certain structure that those the inside source that I pointed to that was in my solar plexus with this group of 3 sets, each chakra point plus one above the head and one below the root has 9 sets located in that space or rooted in that space. And so we have like 81 selves. At least this is what I've been able to
right,
scope out.
right.
And it makes sense. There's a lot more to learn about it. This is sort of just the beginning of this science, but it's pretty exciting and it's pretty mind-blowing, and it sort of makes you humble, realizing there's no way to know yourself. There's much more in you than you can hold in your mind at one time. You've got maybe a fraction, at any given moment. So
That's,
just to be
yeah.
open to what's there.
So maybe with that, let's talk about psychotopology training a bit.
Yeah, okay.
We turn to that. So I'd say psychotopology is like the basic science quarter of our institute. And the other modules that you, if you followed this week, the I Ching resonance code, life as an oracle, the songwriting and creativity and leadership, those are applications out of this basic science. And we're about to launch the psychotopology training, which will also be a certificate program for doing psychotopology as a self-practice, and also potentially as a coach, as a mentor, where you can sit with a client to do that. So the training module will consist of doing X amount of one-on-one work with either Joe and I, plus a group cohort where we understand, understand how this process work, and also people can pair up and to do practice with one another. And so if you are interested, please, I'm going to put there's a form that you can fill out on this web page where you can indicate your interest. And also Joe's Psychotopology website, Substack website is here that you're welcome to follow. Okay, great. Yeah. And let's see. And also I want to say that this psychotopology field work process is very integratable with if you are already some kind of professional therapist, counseling coach.
Healer.
I have students. I've delivered psychotopology training in China. It's taken well, really loved by my Chinese students, and they just integrate in their own private practice. So there's different degree of psychotopology. I mean, Joe holds really the highest bar of doing the complete map of all 9 chakras. Each chakra has 81 feeling states. And on the other end of the bar, and on the end of the spectrum, you can just start doing mapping, moving one feeling state at a time, and feeling get a feel of what this does and what this potential can enable in people, in yourself, and work our way up to it. So
even just the basic mapping by itself without even going into moving can be very illuminating when you're digging into some feeling that's challenging or muddled, or just to help clarify what are the different parts that are there and how might they be interacting that can be integrated into any kind of process.
yeah. I want to say that this having psychotopology has given me almost like a superpower. I feel a source of agency that that is congruent with who I am. Often, when at the beginning of my journey of wanted to participate in social transformation, I have this desire, but I just there's a high need to participate in a way that is really congruent with my being and not fall into the mode of excessive doing. So yeah, so the psychotopology give me this chance of whenever my being has step out into the world and encounter some resistance or challenge, I can come back, work with what has been triggered in me by investigating my being through psychotopology, and that will through resonance, I'll have access into a bigger, fuller, stronger version scope of being, and that will initiate a different engagement with the world, and it's that kind of process. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Maybe we wrap up soon or open to a question or two before we do the after chat.
Yeah. So
Or maybe example of sounds used. Let's see if I can find something in Susan's work here. Let's see. Okay, so I'm just going to give you an example real quick of from remember the no plate, steel plate, and that moved into the um, the exquisite safety place to stand underneath. So I'm just looking at the transcript here. I asked her, okay, so it's horizontal under my feet. Um, it's a similar kind of steel plate. It's just repurposed under my feet as a place to stand. So I said, is there any inner sound that comes with this? Same kind of low tone that it was before, like a homing beacon or a signal. Okay, let's see if there's another example here. And so moving the fearful fear, that was the fuzzy sort of fog in the chest that becomes like a soft blanket around that was the spacious around her torso. And I asked, does it want to have any kind of inner sound? She says, like a soft humming, almost like a lullaby sound or a soothing sound. Not necessarily a melody, but just a comforting hum. And so for some people, sound is more central to their experience of feeling, and for some people, it's more peripheral, and only occasionally do they have a strong sound associated with a state. So, yeah. Any other questions?
Yeah, I want to comment that this process of doing psychotopology is intrinsically a very creative process because you're turning your attention to places there's no name yet. You got to name it the way you want. You got to draw it, and even the sound is a creative process. You listen internally to that subtle vibration that translates into sound. It's very
Yeah.
very fun. It's very playful.
It very much is practice again. You're doing this work with these structures of yourself, but part of the way you're doing it teaches you to listen to what's inside, like literally and figuratively. Um, and so, yeah, very powerful just for everyday life. Um, yeah.
And I think this question has come multiple times during the program that all of the modules we introduce here is available to anyone to take. You don't have to be enrolled in Ubiquity degree program. So that's kind of the creative aspect of this this degree setup is that you can find your way in and have the option of wanting to take the whole thing or just experiencing dipping into part of it, and let the wholeness grow if that's what's congruent with your life path. So feel free to sample, experience the different modules, knowing that whatever you sample is actually is a part of the ecosystem that holds a bigger whole.
Oh,
Well,
been a ride.
anything else, Joe, you want to share before after
Um,
chat?
I see there's a little flag by this Q&A thing. Somebody asked, can tinnitus or tinnitus be seen as a sound or vibration? Okay, this is a great and interesting question. And I didn't make this distinction before. When we are bringing our awareness into the space of feeling, we are letting go of all perceptual sensation. So we're letting go. It's like close your eyes. You're not looking at anything. You're not seeing anything. You're shutting down your mind. You're thought process, your physical somatic sensations. So they can be clues about what something feels like, but not the thing itself. So if you're feeling nervous and you feel a tightness in your stomach, it's worth looking at that stomach area to see if there is a something that is non-somatic there, parasomatic. But it's very possible that it might be located up around your head or surrounding your whole body. And your body, the emotional systems of your body are a whole another system that are integrated with this feeling system. And like I said, they're clues as to where you might look, but they're not the thing itself. And I think tinnitus is a similar kind of thing. It is not a direct perception, but it is functioning as if it is a perception in our brain. So it wouldn't be one of the clear indicators of whether something is part of a feeling state's properties, this virtual material properties or not, is if you're tapping into it, can you deliberately adjust it more or less? And I think you'll find that ringing in the ears is not something that's easy to just consciously adjust. And so I would put it in the category of sensation, even though it's sort of a manufactured sensation. Yeah. So
Great. I think arriving at this point, maybe for further, more in-depth discussion, if you can join the after chat, that'll be great. And also, if you are interested in this, following this, please sign up Resonance Path Institute's registration form, and we will also deliver experiential workshops for people to, for people to decide whether they want to take on to getting the psychotopology coaching. So you will have opportunity to have other free, more like a taste sampling kind of experiential. Yeah.
look forward to that. All right.
Great. Thank you all. So that concludes our this weeks of Living Resonance Leadership Introduction. And it's been a blast. I'm so grateful of all the people who made this possible. Georg, Stan, Jim, and all the Humanity Rising staff, and you all, the audience. You have been great. And I look forward to knowing you more as our journey unfold. I welcome your participation in any to the small scale, to the whole package. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all for your very affirmative thoughts and your questions along the way and comments. Appreciate it.
Thank you. And I will close the video and I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.